Hello and welcome to Java with Jim. I'm Jim Reese, Director of Business Development at Offit Kurman, joined here today with Christopher Wink, co-founder and CEO at Technically. Christopher, good to see you again today.
Jim, always a pleasure.
Yes, it is a pleasure. Love talking to you. Let's jump into this, Chris.
I feel completely inadequate without my own signature hat, Jim. I feel inadequate.
I'll send you one. How
All
about
right.
that?
Okay.
So when you interview me, you'll have the hat. There you
Deal.
go.
Deal.
Tell us about Technically what you guys do there and what makes your company different from other companies in your vertical.
Right. So we are a news organization. We serve a community of technologists and entrepreneurs. We report daily on economic change and innovation in a half dozen U.S. cities. And we use that information to inform and connect that community of professionals. What's different about us? Our interest in local has always been a quirk. That we care a lot about place. We say that the technologists and entrepreneurs who rely on us are folks who are invested in where they live, which is, as we know, often a rarity among professionals. And that we focus on both the entrepreneurs and the technologists, the people who work inside these organizations. Those are some ways that we've always been different. The worker and the entrepreneur have always been crucial. We very much think of ourselves as part of ecosystems. So we're tools for ecosystem folks.
I got to ask you. So as you know, I get your daily newsletter.
Shout
I
outs.
want to say 5 or 6 o'clock p.m., something like that.
Something like that.
A unique time because nothing else comes into my inbox at that time. Like, my inbox was empty. Now I've got something in there. But seriously, though, I do a monthly newsletter, and I know what it takes to do that. You do a daily newsletter or whatever you call it. How do you get all of the content for that daily newsletter? How do you do it? Like, how many elves do you have running around doing this?
Well, of our team of 20, more than a third of our team are full-time journalists. And it's often, I think you're right, there's a lot of like unspoken assumption that how news and information gathering takes place is just the drippings of the internet. But real humans go into the gathering, the fact checking, the editing, the synthesizing, the curating of the news information we put together every day. Credit obviously to our newsroom. 8 incredible professionals, and a system. I mean, in something that from all the many, I'm sure, clients and entrepreneurs you've talked about through the years. Any organization that lasts has to put quite a bit of effort into the infrastructure that results in excellence sustained over time. And we are about 15 years old as a news organization. It is not always as systematized as we might want, but every day our newsroom puts together an incredible amount of local journalism to inform people, and that's a real point of pride.
They sure do. So when it comes to Technically, what are you most proud of?
I mean, for me, I was always passionate about the business modeling side of things. I believe that over 500 years, we, as a trade of journalism makers, have done a lot of incredible work on the form, the ethics, the process, the standards, and we subscribe to a great many of them. But what over the last 30 years, the story of journalism has been is the transformation of how we connect the value we create with the value we capture, and that's business modeling. So we've put a lot of effort into how we capture some value that we create to sustain and make sure we can pay those journalists full-time wages and the team that supports and underwrites the organization. So I think that's honestly what I am proud of. Look, like we do a lot of great daily reporting. We've been publishing in Baltimore 10 years, many other cities nearly as long, 15 years overall as an organization. I am proud of every day putting out great reporting, and that should be and is top of mind. But when you really ask me what am I most proud of, it's going to be what is rarest in this world, and that is us piecing together an ethical, sustainable, and informed community journalism business model.
I love that. Well said. Um, so what do the next 6 months look like for you and technically? A lot of talk about, um, whether we're in a recession, going to be in a recession. Is it a recession light? What is it? Certainly impacts the technology vertical. So what do the next 6 months look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a few big themes on the editorial side that will reflect us as an organization as well. You hit on a big one. We are in an unusual economic period with so many positive signs of sustained economic strength alongside a very intentional slowdown of an economy. We haven't had it's been almost 15 years since we've had a real economic slowdown. When you look back at the Great Recession, many core technical roles did not get shaved as much outside of financial services and some firms that had just total collapses. So it's going to be really interesting to see what takes place. We've still seen some net gains on tech jobs, even with some rollbacks at large tech firms. So we'll be following all of that as a news organization. It of course also impacts us as a company, as a sustainable organization. We're doing a bunch of really big reporting projects that all relate to will the pandemic shift what it means to be a locally minded entrepreneur technologist forever? So remote work, recession, ties to local and to place. Those are some of the biggest conversations we have as a society, and they are ones that we at Technically feel uniquely positioned to offer insight on, which we will aim to do for our community of technologists and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you before we get to the final fun question. I wanted to ask you, because you and I have talked about this before also, want to make sure our audience hears this, but how do companies work with you?
Yeah, and that's like probably a very good question for a news organization, because many news organizations have this very funny model. We're a double-sided marketplace, right? Like we have to grow a community and then we connect people with that community. And all media is that. You're either growing subscribers or you're growing an audience to meet people. I think, and have put a lot of thought into how one does that ethically. But I mean, we technically have two core audiences: technologists and entrepreneurs. So most of our services all relate to people who want to make sure those two groups know them. So we have a bunch of ecosystem builder clients, law firm folks, and universities and economic development groups and other service providers who want to make sure entrepreneurs know they have their services, and companies that do long-term hiring with tech and tech adjacent innovative professionals. We do a lot of employer brand marketing. Those two are our biggest, most consistent categories. We do a fair bit of research, actually, which is kind of interesting. That's grown a bunch in the pandemic, where we will help go answer complicated questions that relate to our beat for folks. That's kind of an emerging side of what we do. And for many years, we've always had events that the pandemic, of course, really disrupted it. So those first two categories of getting ecosystem builders in front of entrepreneurs and getting hiring companies in front of professionals are kind of a good through line. Always we try to do it with great consent and connection. Mostly we find our readers do expect us to curate quality relationships, and that's ultimately what we want to do as a news organization.
All right. So Chris, what do people watching this video not know about you?
So maybe there's probably a few weird answers I could give. There's
you know what? I'll let you give me two good answers, but one of them has to be weird.
All right, what's the weirdest answer I could get? Now, see, I'm just such a committed nerd that unfortunately most of those probably won't answer. Maybe actually I'll give us a surprising answer, because I'm like in our reporting much more of a nerd it's sometimes confusing people that I am actually very competitive also. I think I'm seen as an entirely passive nerd, but I play a lot of basketball with friends. So I will always be game in a very competitive game of pickup basketball. And perhaps slightly less surprising, but it's often a personal quirk I always like to proudly point out. I am a devoted, passionate lover of whiskey in all forms. And so I will frequently use that as a great reason to connect with people. It's something that I love talking about, love the culture around. I've done some writing about whiskey, so perhaps it's a bit of a cheat, but so writing writing competition in whiskey, and I'm in pretty good shape.
Wow, yeah, the trifecta. Very nice. Well done. Well, this has been fun and entertaining and informational too.
Wow, Jim. I mean, when you put together a show like this, I have to bring my best. So I appreciate the opportunity, Jim.
Next time you'll have the hat, but until then, it's farewell for now. I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
I love it. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, man. Take care. See ya. Bye.